The investigation took a sharp turn as the detectives shifted their focus to a new suspect, Alexa Hernandez, a fiery 30-year-old with a turbulent history involving the victim. Alexa had once been married, but that marriage was shattered the day she walked in on Richard Engelbert and her husband locked in a compromising position in a bathroom during a visit to a friend's house. That moment of betrayal had ignited a deep-seated hatred in Alexa, one that simmered just beneath the surface. Detective James Cattle brought Alexa in for questioning on June 29th, 2014. Alexa, known for her sharp tongue and unyielding spirit, entered the interrogation room with a fierce determination to clear her name. But the detectives could sense the tension, the anger that still lingered from that fateful day. Alexa didn't hold back, admitting she despised Richard for ruining her marriage and inflicting emotional pain that still stung years later. She spoke with a bitterness that was hard to ignore, recounting how Richard had shrugged off her attempts to confront him, refusing to offer an apology or explanation. The more she talked, the more the detectives wondered, was this just the venting of a scorned woman, or was there something darker lurking beneath her words? Had her hatred for Richard driven her to seek revenge, to end his life in the most brutal way possible? As Detective Cattle pushed further, the room seemed to grow colder, the tension more palpable. The line between truth and deception blurred, and the detectives were left questioning everything they thought they knew. Had they finally found their killer, or was this just another dead end in a case that seemed to grow more twisted with each passing day? Alexa replied she had been working a double shift at a restaurant named Denny's. When asked where she had been on the day of the murder, she gave the names of her colleagues, able to confirm her alibi. Detective Cattle verified Alexa had been at work all day when he phoned the restaurant and talked with Alexa's boss. Several co-workers also verified seeing her throughout her shifts. Detective Cattle looked into Alexa's probable intentions. Even with her strong alibi, she clearly felt great resentment against Richard, but she maintained she had moved on and was concentrating on reconstructing her life. Alexa said she had enrolled in night studies at a nearby community college, aiming to work as a social worker and assist others who had gone through same experiences. Searching Alexa's house and vehicle, the police sought for any proof connecting her to the murder. They turned up nothing unusual or damning. The phone records and social media activities of Alexa revealed no interaction with Richard in the weeks before the murder. Alexa seemed cool and collected during the questioning, although clearly despising Richard. She exhibited no evidence of guilt or dishonesty and answered all questions straightforwardly. Although Detective Cattle saw her honesty and cooperation, she understood they had to leave all alternatives open. Alexa was let go many hours of interrogation. Knowing her history with Richard made her a possible suspect. The cops kept watching her. Her alibi and lack of proof, however, complicate direct linking her to the murder. Every interview added complexity to the search into Richard Engelbert's murder. Although Detective Cattle and his colleagues were resolved to find the truth, their work became more difficult given the web of lies and secrets around Richard's life. They persisted in search of the piece of proof that would at last identify the murderer. The probe veered dramatically on July 3, 2014. Littleton, Colorado, was having a steamy summer day with highs in the upper 80s. Detective James Cattle answered a call from the forensic lab at 10 o'clock a.m. Reviewing objects from the murder site, they had discovered vital, fresh evidence. Among Richard Engelbert's possessions was a little concealed camera meant to be a smoke detector set in the basement. Detective Cattle and his staff grabbed the video right away. For the preceding several weeks, the camera had captured the events in the basement, including Richard's covert meetings and contacts. Reviewing the video, they came onto a clip from the murder day. The video showed Richard and his stepson, Harrison Engelbert, engaged in a furious altercation. The dispute turned rapidly into a physical fight. Harrison choked Richard in a fit of wrath in the video, grabbing the luxury belt from a nearby chair. Unquestionably, the video showed Harrison's participation in the murder. It caught the whole occurrence. The crew was astounded by the violence and obvious intent behind the act, angry and betrayed behavior. Detective Cattle got this fresh data and invited Harrison to come in for further questions. Unaware of the video proof against him, Harrison showed up at the station. Cattle showed him the video during the questioning. The way Harrison behaved altered right away. His first tranquility evolved into despair and fear. Harrison broke down and said he had been caught. He said he felt imprisoned in the relationship with Richard, controlled by his mother Wendy and his stepfather. Constant dishonesty and Richard's adultery had driven him to his breaking point. Harrison said he had murdered Richard to release himself from the stifling circumstances during a flash of unbridled anger. Detective Cattle made sure every element of Harrison's confession was recorded precisely. The fresh data, together with the confession, made clear Harrison's culpability. The police now clearly understood the circumstances before Richard Engelbert's murder, as well as the convoluted network of lies and secrets around the case. Just before lunch, on July 4th, 2014, the Littleton Police Department moved decisively. Detective James Cattle and his staff were prepared to arrest Harrison Engelbert for the murder of Richard Engelbert with his confession and the damning video evidence. Living a life of upheaval and uncertainty, Harrison, 21, a college student and part-time bartender, had been, though he tried to get over his difficult past. The emotional weight from his involvement with his mother's manipulations and his stepfather had brought him to a breaking point. Overwhelmed with emotions of deception and betrayal, Harrison had slain Richard in a flash of wrath, the police discovered. Detective Cattle and several other cops showed up to Harrison's residence on the day of the arrest. They knocked on the door, and Harrison replied, looking pale and tired. Reading his rights while handcuffed, Harrison showed no feeling as he was driven to the police vehicle and looked to be accepting of his destiny. Though the area was peaceful, a few inquisitive spectators observed as the incident played out. Harrison officially was charged with Richard Engelbert's murder back at the station. Detective Cattle conducted a last interrogation to record every element of Harrison's confession. Harrison underlined once again his sense of being imprisoned and controlled by Richard, and under pressure from his mother, Wendy. He detailed the events before the murder, including the aggressive dispute that had turned into the deadly assault. Also hauled in for interrogation was Richard's wife, Wendy Engelbert, mother of Harrison. According to the inquiry, Wendy had urged Harrison to keep the affair continuing for months while knowing about it. Richard's careless sexual activity worried her, as it would destroy her prospects in the forthcoming race for school superintendent. Wendy, however, had no direct part in the murder. Although her lies and manipulation complicated the investigation, she was not accused of any crimes. The disclosures stunned Richard's relatives. Unaware of Richard's other existence, they had perceived him as a committed husband and parent. Harrison's arrest generated a range of feelings: sadness for Richard's death, resentment at the treachery, and a sense of tragic inevitability given the facts. The news astounded the Littleton community. The murder had rocked the community to its very foundation by revealing a secret society of lies and secrets. Harrison awaited trial as the Engelbert family and the whole town worked to process the startling events that had transpired. Although the case had been closed by the police, the emotional fallout would last for a considerable period. The facts regarding Richard's life and death had come to light, but the wounds left behind would take much more time to heal. August 15th, 2014 saw Harrison Engelbert's trial start in Littleton, Colorado. Family, relatives, and local journalists crowded the courtroom, all anxious to learn the specifics of the case. Drawing attention from local as well as national news sources, the trial was a major event in the town. District Attorney Laura Mitchell, 45-year-old, recognized for her sharp courtroom appearance and commitment to. She contended that Harrison's murder of Richard Engelbert was planned and motivated by intense hatred and betrayal. She offered Harrison's confession and the hidden camera video as main proof. Mitchell underlined that Harrison's actions sprang from a turbulent and unstable relationship, but finally, he was in charge of the cruel killing of his stepfather. Non-binary advocate Z. Barnes, a 40-year-old attorney with a track record of fighting well-publicized cases, defended the defense. Barnes said that both Richard's mother, Wendy, and Harrison's behavior reflected great emotional conflict and manipulation. They said Harrison's fragile mental condition and the strain he was under made it difficult for him to regulate his behavior. In light of the situation, Barnes asked for a guilty judgment, but with regard for a reduced charge, therefore hoping for a more mild punishment. The victim's family, including Wendy Engelbert and other relatives, sat silently throughout the trial, clearly unhappy with the procedures. The disclosures of Richard's second life and the upheaval it had generated had startled them. Listening to the specifics of the affair and the murder, their emotional responses were evident. September 5th, 2014 saw the jury return with a decision. Harrison Engelbert came out clean on second-degree murder. The jury decided that while Harrison had acted in a flash of wrath, the killing was not planned. The choice elicited conflicting responses. Given the psychological and emotional elements at hand, several believed the decision was fair. Given the savagery of the act, some thought it was too forgiving. Harrison was given a 25-year jail term without chance of release. Although the sentence closed the matter, Richard's family would still suffer much from stress and loss. Knowing that someone so close to Richard had brought about his death, the Engelbert family battled to find closure. The trial had influence outside of the courtroom. It left a lasting impression on Littleton by forcing the town to face the latent facts of deception and treachery. As the case came to close, the Engelbert family and the town of Littleton started the challenging process of recovering from the startling events that had transpired. Following the September 2014 Harrison Engelbert trial, Littleton, Colorado, gradually started to go back to normal. But the case stayed with us, deeply disturbed by the horrific murder of Richard Engelbert and the following disclosures. The community had a protracted healing and adjustment period. Still serving a 25-year jail term, Harrison Engelbert stayed in the Colorado Department of Corrections. Dealing with his own emotions and the fallout from his acts, his life behind bars reflected the same challenges he encountered outside. Harrison was apparently calm and reserved in jail, concentrating on finishing his degree via offered courses. He took the opportunity to go back over prior choices and get emotional problem treatment. Richard's wife, Wendy Engelbert, had difficulties of her own. Her personal and professional life suffered much when the trial revealed her knowledge of Richard's affair and her manipulative behavior. She had been fervently lobbying for the post of school superintendent, hence the incident compromised her candidacy. Though she had earlier tried to project a flawless picture, the disclosures caused her to withdraw from the contest. Seeking treatment to manage the emotional damage and to repair her image, Wendy sought to reconstruct her life away from public view. Littleton started to move ahead in the months after the trial. However, the case left scars. To commemorate Richard Engelbert's memory and assist those impacted by the tragedy, the community organized memorials and supporting activities. The tragedy of the Engelbert family acted as a somber reminder of the secret battles hiding behind closed doors. The case remained a moving chapter in Littleton's history, a reminder of the profound effects of violence and treachery on people and communities both, even as life returned to its usual speed. The murder of Richard Engelbert serves as a sobering reminder of the complexity and secrets that could lie under the surface of apparently ideal life. This is a story of deception, dishonesty, and the terrible consequences of leading two lives. We appreciate you participating on this True Crime Case Files episode. Keep tuned for additional detailed studies on the most confusing offenses